Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm County Commissioner Chris Jordan, representing District 1 in West Spokane. For today's program, I've invited a special guest to talk about her new role. She's a longtime business owner, nonprofit leader, recipient of the YWCA Woman of Achievement Award, former city council member, a mother, grandmother, my friend, and our newly elected city council president, Betsy Wilkerson. Did I miss anything, Betsy?
If you did, I don't remember.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being here to talk to me today. It's always a joy to chat with you, and we'll get to talk about some of your goals for your new position and all the opportunities that we have in front of us as Spokane. But first, I just wanted to back up a little bit and remind our viewers about your family story, your path to this new leadership position. So can you tell us about your background and what led to your desire to serve the community?
You know, my desire to serve the community was, I was raised that way. Honestly, I don't know anything else. I remember back in the 90s when they coined the term servant leadership. Well, I was already raised on that. It's like my mom had coined that term long before it was a buzzword. So really just service, community service. I had the opportunities to be part of many amazing nonprofit organizations, from philanthropy to healthcare to housing, even in the legal world, serving at the state level. And every opportunity provided me to see a different perspective. And I've been fortunate enough to take those perspectives and lived experience and bring them to the role I'm serving now. But really the end game is to help our brothers and sisters.
So I've heard you talk about your mom being an important influence in your life, and I believe she was a minister.
Yes.
So tell the viewers a little bit about your family coming to Spokane and the influence and guidance that your mom had on you.
Right. So 1963, a black woman with 4 children moved here from West Point, Mississippi, and came to Spokane on a train. That was bold then, that would be bold today. She came looking for a better life. She was a minister. So I grew up in the faith. That's where that servant leadership comes from. My mom was doing a food bank before food banks were in. She was housing people. She was providing clothing. The old grocery outlet store on Sprague, my mom would go and get food and take it to people. And so when you have that kind of role model in your life, and it was never about her title, it was always about living out her faith. And she certainly personified, she was her brother and sister's keeper. I often think, don't want to screw up because I know my mom's in heaven looking down at me. I tell
No pressure.
No pressure right there. But she left a legacy that people still talk about today. And so when you have that type of representation in your life, you know how important it is. So yeah. Bigger than life personality.
Yeah, bold sounds like a good
Bold.
descriptor, right?
Bold.
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for that. And before you became an elected leader, of course, you led the community in a different way as a business owner here in town. And if I'm not mistaken, you owned and operated Moore's Assisted Living
Yes.
Facility, the family business, for many years. So I'd imagine that that's a big challenge in its own right. So what's it like owning a business here in Spokane? How did you find that experience?
Challenging.
Yeah.
I will say my mom started the business in 1976, and I took over in 93. That really is what grounded me because I care for the mentally ill. And so seeing how people can thrive when they're planted in fertile ground. But I tell you, as a business owner, when people talk to me about taxes and regulations,
Right.
well, my contract's with DSHS, and I'm telling you, they are the king and queen of regulations in this world. But coming through COVID as a small business owner was something really profound. I will also say that my mom started the first Black, they were called group homes back in the day, and she went on to mentor others in this field. But being a business owner really anchors you to the community because I'm not only caring for people who need that care, but I also have employees that my decisions impact their lives just as much as the people I care for. So that weight of responsibility and privilege
Right.
to own a business is really critical. In Spokane, really, people say it's not a good business climate, but I think a lot of businesses have thrived in Spokane, and a lot of small businesses, and that's the exciting part about Spokane for me.
So how is that? How will that experience and perspective, having to balance the books and work with staff, caring for clients? How do you expect some of those skills to translate to
Oh,
your new job
absolutely.
and shape your priorities?
Absolutely, Commissioner. It's like you have to listen in
Right.
order to make the best decisions we can, or as a business owner. I think what we are afraid of is making the wrong decision. And I know some of my best learning experiences have been from my wrong decisions. It's
Right.
like, okay, I'm not going to do that again
Right.
and go a different way. But bringing that knowledge to council of dynamics of personnel and the dynamics of business and the challenges that small business owners face in Spokane, I think gives me a unique perspective. And then caring for the homeless and the mentally ill, which is one of the reasons I got into this work to begin with, as to really give a good narrative around that, really helps me understand the very many facets
Right.
of government, because it's not just one thing, and realizing that every decision I make impacts something else in government. And it's not just my little district, it's citywide.
Right.
So that more holistic approach, I think, is valuable to me, and I think that will really help me in my role as council president.
Wonderful. Well, when you joined Spokane City Council in 2020, you were the second African American councilwoman in Spokane's history. Now in 2024, you've taken office as Spokane's first African American woman serving as council president. It's a historic accomplishment for you.
Yes.
And a historic choice for the city. So I'm wondering, how would you describe the significance of this first for yourself and for Spokane?
When I was appointed as a council member back in 2020, and now to be elected to council president, I never did it for the title or never set out to make history, that's for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, I was just showing up to do good work in my community. But it is important. And I want to remind people, government's fluid. People just think government is stagnant. Government is very fluid. Laws change, representation matters. Who's there? Those lived experiences. But when I go to the grocery store or I'm in church and young kids of color or girls, I speak a lot to girls,
Yeah.
come up to me about government in their admiration for me, I tell you, it's probably the most humbling thing that I
Right.
have dealt with, because again, you never know how your life will impact somebody else.
Right.
So my challenge and opportunity is to make sure that I personally walk upright in this position, and that I leave the door open behind me, and not only leave the door open, but be priming the pump for other women or people of color or anybody who's interested in doing this really valuable work that we do.
It's quite a connection to make with the kids and the next
Oh,
generation.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's probably my passion point.
Yeah.
It still makes me very emotional
Yeah.
when I realize the responsibility of the office.
So I heard you say representation matters. Why do you think that that's just so important to have folks of diverse backgrounds and experiences in our local government?
You know, first of all, I ran because my grandkids said, "Run, Granny, run." They were
Family
young.
meeting that you had? Yeah.
Oh, every Sunday we have these family meetings, and they were in 5th grade. They were so excited about it. But young people today have to see people who look like them. We have to set up the environment where they can dream. It's like, you know what? So Council President Wilkerson did that. She didn't come from money or an Ivy League school, but because she was committed, she did it. I can do it too. Also, Commissioner, we look at how the demographics of not only our city is changing, but our country as well. And so we have to make room for folks who don't particularly look like us or lived experience, but to bring their talents
Right.
into this arena to really help us make good decisions for everyone. Because in government, if we're not, we are losing out.
Right. Yep, lots to gain.
Lots to gain.
Well, you mentioned church, and it was an amazing time watching alongside so many excited community members, you taking the oath of office at the AME Church. So let's dive into the new job now that it's official. And I've heard you talk about an approach that you strive for as an elected official, and that's collaboration wherever possible.
Absolutely.
Why is that so important to you, to look for common ground with others as you seek to make progress on the goals that you have in office?
Absolutely. Collaboration will be the key, not only for the city, in my office as council members and the administration, but regionally. We sometimes forget that we are all serving the same people.
Right.
Same people with the same needs. And if we work together and leverage what we have, we can certainly go further and faster. Most of our citizens really don't know, which is like, I don't know who really represents them sometimes outside of the election, or what district they live in, or if they're in the county or the city. All they really want are the services that are needed to make their lives better. If we work together, we can deliver that in a very effective and I hope financially feasible way for everybody, for our taxpayers. Unity is what's really required, and it's time to bring our region and our city and our county together to do that work.
Amen. Are you preaching today?
I'm preaching. I'm preaching. I'm preaching. I'm preaching.
good.
So I'm sorry, can't help it.
Well, I think it's an important topic that we focus on that a bit, because as you and I both know, we're elected officials at a time of intense polarization and division in politics. And I don't know about you, but as I interact with people all over town and all over the county, I find that we do have some differences, but there's an awful lot of commonality, I think, among the public in terms of who we are and what people want from government. And you talked a little bit about that. And I think that, you know, as you mentioned, most of these folks realize that we don't necessarily always agree on every issue, but perhaps we should at least try to find some agreement where we can and be decent and truthful throughout the process. It doesn't seem like too much to ask, does it?
Seems like pretty low-hanging fruit, doesn't it?
But low bar.
This is a low bar. I think the best place we can start is to start having the conversations. My observation, those have not really happened enough.
Right.
And also, let's remove the labels. Honestly, when it snowed, did you care if a Republican, Democrat, or Independent was driving the plow truck?
Right.
Absolutely not. You know, if your water's not running, you don't ask your public safety officer what their political affiliation is.
Right.
You just want to have your needs met. So I would say we need to check ourselves electeds. Check, I'm going to say, our egos or our political alignments.
Are you saying politicians have egos?
Not all of us. Not all. Some of us do. Not all of us.
Okay.
Not all of us.
No
But
accusations being
no,
made
no
today.
accusations being made. I'm not talking to you out there. But we need to check that at the door, and we need to be focusing on what's in the best interest of the people that elected us to serve them, to meet their needs. I think if we could start that approach, I think we'll be so much further down the line. But you know, titles are what's really dividing us. We kind of become a little tribal, but really we're all one tribe, and we need to remember that.
So using that approach, what are some of the top goals and priorities that you plan to bring as council president?
Well, first of all, I got to get my own council up to speed. As you know, we had 2 new elected council members this year. with my election, my seat, my former seat in District 2 is open. So we're going through the process right now of an appointment. We have some stuff left over from last year that we got to deal with. A lot of that is the same issues the county's facing. It's homelessness, it's public safety, it's a budget that we have to deal with. And then how do we collaborate on these bigger issues? Because again, I say, nobody really knows where the city line ends. You know, do you know if you cross Savannah, you're in a different city? Nobody pays attention to that. To most folks, we're just one big region. So again, a lot of the challenges and opportunities is the regional approach for us. So traffic calming is one. Again, back to public safety. Mental health will continue to be a challenge for us. And how do we fund that? And how do we use best practices to get the best outcomes that we're looking for?
Right. Well, many of the issues that you identified, of course, as you said, they don't stop at the city border or the county border. So what do you think, well, first of all, they're tough issues, right?
They're tough.
Complex issues. One of the issues that you identified is the number of folks in our community who are unhoused, right, and dealing with that challenge. So what are some of the strategies that you see as the most promising? And what are some ways that the city and county might better collaborate across those borders to get some better results?
First of all, I will say, I don't think money is the biggest challenge in some of the issues we're facing. So the city did some new zoning laws, some changes. That will help. How we partner with the county in zoning and how we get to site some of these mental health facilities. Amazingly, there's money at the state level. It's just finding a place to be and how do we integrate them into our neighborhoods. And people have heard me say, I speak a lot about the scatter site approach. A neighborhood cannot absorb 400 people. That is larger than some of our small towns in the state of Washington without a governance body. But a neighborhood can absorb 60, maybe 80 people because we're already coexisting with mental health facilities, adult family homes, and they are neighborhoods. So that's one thing I think. There's a whole litany of them, but that is one of the critical ones. And then this housing piece, our partnership not only with each other, the city and the county, but a stronger partnership with the state. I believe if we lobby together, let's just show up in force like we did for the North-South Corridor on the governor's doorsteps, then I think we could get more resources than what we have been getting to meet the needs of our community.
Well, we, as local governments, as you know, have been engaged in an ongoing conversation over the past year about ideas to form regional strategies and approaches. So hopefully that conversation will give us some momentum as we
I hope so as well.
into this
new
year here in 2024.
It's a new year, Commissioner.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Lots of opportunities.
Lots of opportunities and lots of room for people to come in.
That's right. So similar question on public safety, another topic that you identified. What are some key strategies that you'd like to pursue at the city? And then how do you see ways that the city and county might be able to work together better?
So of course, we are all challenged with recruitment. And what is our strategy? So I have actually talked with public safety. It's how are we recruiting? Are we recruiting locally? I hope so. I know we go out and recruit. Are we recruiting diversity? I mean, Spokane's a beautiful area. I can't believe some folks in the South who are dealing with tornadoes and storms all the time wouldn't want to come to the beautiful Northwest. So recruitment is key. And changing the narrative. It's not, the community is not against public safety. Electeds are not against public safety. So they are a critical part of any community and why people want to move here. What I want us to work on is this unified narrative to our community that we show up together. So there's the county, then there's the city, and there's the other public safety. It'd be interesting to really have a summit from our public safety officers in our region. To my knowledge, that's never happened. I think that'd be a fascinating conversation because we need to hear from them. Public safety is not always a top-down.
Right.
It should really be a bottom-up with public safety officers and the people they have been hired to serve and protect.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that I've heard repeatedly in speaking with sheriff's deputies and law enforcement is just how many of the responses that they go to relate to a mental health challenge, right, or a drug issue,
Yes.
other behavioral health challenge. And I think maybe we have some opportunity to talk about ways to expand ideas like mental health first responders, perhaps even related to fire, right? They have that challenge too in dealing with behavioral health calls, and that may be a way to help some of our law enforcement get back to dealing with the crime, right? What have you heard similar things from law enforcement?
And amazingly, a lot around mental health teams with the fire department.
Right.
And they have community members says, it's important the color of lights that show up on a call.
Right.
Because, you know, even though public police are there, they are concerned about they have something in their criminal background. But if the fire department shows up, they're there, you know, for health and safety. So I think, how do we then continue to co-deploy these mental health providers with them in the community, not only in the community, but also in our schools? We cannot forget that, because mental health just don't start when you're an adult.
Right.
Usually
go upstream. Right.
we have to go upstream. And we don't talk about that as much as we should, because solving it at the end is the most expensive way to deal with it.
Right.
Let's go upstream. But more co-deployment. We talked about we were going to talk about the stabilization center.
Yeah.
What are the resources to help people?
Right.
And Commissioner, helping them all build capacity.
Right.
Right now, capacity is the issue.
Yeah.
They all talk about their own personal staffing levels to meet the needs, and the needs are great. So we have to come at this from two different approaches.
Right.
Providers and our public safety as well.
Right, and there is some good work going on with co-deployed teams between the city and county and state funding. So there's an opportunity to build on some of that, I hope.
We can build on that.
And some of these issues, of course, can seem daunting, especially if we act as if, as you said, we're our own jurisdiction. But I think it's helpful, for me at least, to look back at some of the past successful collaborations that we've seen in our county and in our community. And a great example, as you mentioned, is the Regional Crisis Stabilization Center, which of course was finalized while you were on City Council as a member, and was a partnership between those various entities. So do you think that we can find some encouragement in models and past efforts like that?
I think we can. First of all, we have a great model with the Stabilization Center. So how do we replicate things that are successful? That seems to always be our challenge. You know, in the elected world, we like the word pilot, but really to replicate that and help them be sustainable going forward. I know that Frontier Behavioral Health had some stabilization centers as well, and during COVID, due to staffing, they had to temporarily shut one down just when it was needed the most. But the Stabilization Center, other regional approaches, STA is a regional approach.
Right.
You know, the airport is a regional approach. You know, all of our interlocal agreements. So we have models, successful models of how we have worked together. I just think it requires political will and a little bit of ego at the door. And again, the end game is, how can we best deliver for the people we serve?
Right. So we have lots of challenges to work on, and you're not signing up for an easy job. So I want to end with maybe some hopeful, forward-looking discussion. What do you most love about Spokane?
I love this town. You know what? As most folks, when they left, thought they were never coming back again, this is a great family town. In Spokane, you can still make a difference. I always tell the story. You can show up on a street corner. If you bang a drum long enough, somebody's going to come talk to you and hear what your concerns are. You know, we are not so big that we really can't embrace the challenges and the opportunities. And we're a really diverse community. I don't think people realize how diverse Spokane really is. Socioeconomic, culturally, religiously, we have the makeup and the fabric of a great city. And as a grandmother, we have a great school system, and I can still get across town in 20 minutes. So that's important to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
How about as you think about your term now on City Council and some of the goals and objectives that you talked about, what are the areas that kind of give you hope to actually see progress happening?
Even though it's a big one, a lot, as I just mentioned, traffic. How do we make our community move better? And that's all forms. Last night we were talking about bike lanes and bike safety because everybody doesn't drive a car. So we just can't have one approach to how we address all issues. So traffic is one. Another one is council will be continuing to educate itself on diversity, equity, inclusion, because we need that knowledge to help make good policy, how to be informed, to how to meet the needs regionally of everybody else. Big fan of small business. Small business is the heart. That's what kept Spokane going during COVID, and we saw how critical they are. How do we continue to provide support to keep our mom and pops? Most of them are people who grew up here, live here, want to stay here. So I'm all about big business, but I'm about small business. They are the spice of the city, in my opinion. They are the character, the spice. You know, it's the uniqueness that makes Spokane unique. Those
so
are
if there's
critical.
folks who are out in the community looking to get involved in the community, what kind of advice would you give besides supporting your local business, which of course is so important?
There are so many amazing nonprofits in Spokane that do great work. Even on the city website, there's a list of nonprofits where you can volunteer. But I would always encourage people, you don't have to start big. You can just start in your neighborhood. Maybe you get 2 or 3 folks, scripture, I'll preach at you again. 2 or 3 people gather together can do great things. And we've seen that happen in Spokane. I love philanthropy. I love our cultural nonprofits. I love our healthcare nonprofits. But really, it doesn't have to be something big. Just, first of all, show up. That's how you can start. Come to your city hall and testify.
And meetings are when?
Meetings are Monday night, every Monday night at 6 p.m.
And there's always boards and commissions.
And there's always
as well.
boards and commissions. And we're looking for voices to help us make good decisions.
Well, unfortunately, Council President Wilkerson, we're out of time. I'd love to continue chatting with you, but I just wanted to say thank you for your years of service to the community, for all your passion and dedication, and for chatting with us today.
Thank you. And I have time, 30 seconds, to leave you with something from Martin Luther King.
Okay.
Everyone has the power for greatness, not for fame, but greatness, because greatness is determined by service.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm County Commissioner Chris Jordan. Thank you for joining us today on Spokane County Spotlight.